Well, thank you very much, everybody. I'm certainly very proud to be here. And as I walked in earlier tonight, I was very proud to be here, but now even so more. I think that what has happened tonight has been very impressive. This place is something I did not really know about, but now I have a great appreciation. So again, all to say, thank you very much for the induction. I'd like to congratulate all of the other inductees as well. Very deserving. I know the 1980 is a pretty exceptional year for both myself and Mike Eruzione. I'm not too happy about the fact that the success of the 1980 American team really kind of made our 1980 Stanley Cup championship a little less important in the United States, but that's okay. Okay, we made it up afterwards, winning the next 3 in a row. Sam Rosen, thanks for the very kind words. And I've always had this thing with the New York Rangers. I didn't start it. All I did is hit one guy. He got hurt. And what are you going to say? It's a hitting game. He went to the corner first. I followed him. And Ulf Nielsen changed my whole life. But the fact that the Rangers and I have had this battle over the years has only sort of enhanced the fact that hockey in New York, and this is my opinion, in the 1970s and early 80s had to be probably the greatest rivalry in sports. I think that there are times when you can argue that the Yankees and Red Sox, their rivalries were probably not as intense as the rivalries we had in the late 70s. And had you been on a bus with the New York Islanders trying to get out of Madison Square Garden after an Islander win, you would realize how the fans were crazy. We had a time when I'm sitting in a bus, and you know there's two seats on each side of the bus. These were older buses. So I have Gordon Lane sitting next to the window, and as we're backing out of Madison Square Gardens, there was a throng of people. It was unbelievable. And then the police on horseback were going to lead us into the tunnel to get out to Long Island. Somebody threw a full beer bottle to the window, and it cracked the window, and Gordon Lane got some chips of glass in his face. And then that's just to kind of say how the rivalry was so intense in those years. And of course we liked it because if nothing else, it prepared us for the next several years where we went on to win consecutive Stanley Cups. So I am also very proud to be here because of the induction, knowing that my very good friend, teammate, Kenny Morrow is also inductee, and I was a teammate of his and a partner of his on the ice. So in February 1980, when I watched these guys, you know, the miracle on ice, win the Olympics, basically the gold medal, I was very impressed with the team. I still didn't know very much about this tall, dark-haired, bearded, lanky defenseman. But then March 1st came along, and our first practice, and I see this guy, Kenny Morrow. I first meet him. He's going to now be my partner on defense. And I tell you what, it was the perfect match for me. Because if you know anything about my game, I tended to roam a little bit, tended to get caught up the ice every now and then, trying to go a little too offensive. And for Al Arbor, Kenny Morrow was the perfect blend because Kenny would never skate past center ice. Now, it was amazing. He'd get the puck, either he had two plays, either up the boards or over to me. And that's the way we understood how to play together for several years. And Kenny went on to win, of course, the Stanley Cup with us right after having won the Olympic gold medal. It's quite interesting. I'm sitting with a great friend of mine, probably one of the greatest mentors I've had, a fellow named Eddie Westfall right here. When I was just 19 years old and I got to the island, you know, it's tough to walk into a dressing room. I was a high pick in the draft in 1973, a lot of expectations, and I really needed people to lean on. One of them, of course, you know, was my brother John, who was already a member of the New York Islanders, and probably my best friend in life. But the other was Eddie Westfall. Now, Eddie was the captain of the team. There was a couple of very young players, myself, Billy Harris was another one. We needed a place to stay, and we all ended up being roommates for a few months to get things started. But Eddie taught me one thing, and it happened not in a conversation, but it's a vivid experience that I told Eddie about, and it was during hockey practice. And we used to go, 10 or 12 times around the rink, and I just hated that. I mean, I hated it. I loved playing hockey, but the idea of skating around the rink without a puck did not appeal to me at all, ever. So I'm skating around, and I'm looking over, and there's this guy, Eddie Westfall, who at that time was a little older than most of us. But Eddie was just skating, and he had the big smile on his face. I've never seen anybody skate laps after a practice with a smile on his face, and that's what Captain Eddie did. And that to me was an inspiration. So I really want to extend my dear wishes to a dear friend who has been a lifelong friend since I got to the island. Want to talk a little bit about my brother Potsy. Jean, who we lost a couple of years ago, was really, I call him a pillar in my life, mostly because he was there from the very beginning. When I was 12 or 13 years old, fortunately I had the physical size to be able to play at a higher level. So my brother Jean was a member of the Ottawa 67's junior hockey team. So I'm having dinner one night with my parents. John was getting ready to go to the hockey game. The phone rings, and then Potsy looks at me with the phone in his hand, and I get to be a little bit concerned. And he said his final words were, "Okay, Bill, I'll tell him." Hung up the phone. He was talking to Bill Long, who was at that time the coach of the Ottawa 67's junior hockey team in Ottawa. I was 14. I played sort of in the ranks of Bantam and Midget during that year. And my brother John says to me, he says, "Look, Duin," he used to call me Duin, remember that, Eddie? It was a name that I don't know where it came from. But he said, "Hey, écoute, la Duin, we're all French Canadians." He said, "You're going to come to the game tonight and you're going to play." Well, you can imagine, it just blew me away. And it was my first game against the Niagara Falls Flyers, and I was 14 years old, and was a teammate of my brother's throughout my few years with the Islanders with the 67s until he went off to play pro. And again, just to show how much he sort of led the way for me, I was drafted in 1973 and first pick of the New York Islanders. Well, there was a league called the World Hockey League, the WHA at the time, and I was going to be drafted by the Chicago Cougars, and they offered quite a bit of money. But I think in his wise move, Bill Torrey figured out a way to get my brother Jean Potvin, knowing that he and I were very, very close friends, into the Islander organization. So at the 1973 draft, when it came time to draft me into either the NHL or the World Hockey League, there was no doubt I was going to go to the NHL, mostly because of the Islanders, but a big part was because of my brother John. And we were teammates for quite a long time, and unfortunately we lost him a couple of years ago, but it was probably the highlight of my life, is to first of all grow up with an older brother like him, get to play with him junior, and then find myself in the NHL. So when you think about stories in hockey as I do, there are plenty of them, but I just wanted to share with you one that is most important to me, and that was being part of the New York Islanders along with my brother, Eddie Westfall, and many of the great, great players that we had on that team that eventually went on to win 4 consecutive Stanley Cups. That's all I got to say. Thanks very much.